Hey everybody, this is Blue, and I thought I should start doing some reviews of Rolemaster products out there for everybody. And so I decided to start with the weird one, the most unbalanced companion out there. Might as well have some fun, right? What makes Elemental Companion so unbalanced is, you know, most Rolemaster books have some degree of realism to them, and you swear that the people that made the books had a little bit of a college education. They are well constructed. Not this one. This one is, I swear, was written by people that graduated from high school in Alabama, because what they consider elementals is not. Some of the things that they are listing as elementals just are weird. Vibration is an elemental in this book. They come up with some concepts that are really irritating, and I've never played with them in my games. Some of the creatures that they come up with are also very powerful. Some things you got to really worry about. There's a lot of spells, professions. There's a lot in here. And so if you're a decent GM, you could grab this book and you could come up with some very powerful ideas. You just got to watch what you use, and so you can put in some balance that's not there. If you are going to use this book in your game, there's some of things that they consider to be elementals. Don't use. There's a time elemental, and time is very powerful. Now, we have to be careful of which ones, what you buy. For Rolemaster, there are two elemental companions. There is this one right here, which is the original, and this one that is what they come up with when they were doing the 4th edition. What they say is the 4th edition. The first one, the one I have, was released in 1989, if I remember right. And it was, like I said, really weird. And it took a while to get through there and understand everything. But it was so badly written that when Rolemaster Iron Crown was redoing everything, they came out with this edited version and completely different name, Fire and Ice. And so it was well liked by a lot of people. I never bought it because since I have the original, and that I just decided, that's all I need. So, am I the only person that thinks that this thing is nasty? And the answer is no. From RPG Net, Rolemaster Fire and Ice, the Elemental Companion, is the first new product to be released by ICE since it was renewed in late 2001. This is a complete reinvention of the Elemental Companion, not a rewrite of the original Elemental Companion. The original Elemental Companion is considered by many to be one of the most unbalanced book ever produced by Rolemaster 2nd edition. They're true. By comparison, the new Elemental Companion seems very well balanced, and the professions and spell lists in this book should fit in well with any existing game. I mean, it just tells you how bad it is. ICE had to redo it because it was just that nasty. And so I'm going to go through the book here, but we're going to use the PDF that I have, and we are going to go through this. Okay? First thing we're going to start off with is what they're calling elementals, and you can tell right off the bat, wow, this is bad. Alright, so they're starting off with the basic elementals there. Air, we can We all know what air is, and it's decent. You know, there's no surprises there, right? But as we go down the list, they got cold. Cold's fine, light's fine, vibration. All right, there we go. Vibration element is power energy that takes form of vibration in material. Example is an earthquake, a tuning fork. Thus, a vibration elemental force is a region, area of intense vibration of objects, material. That's their description of it. So we're talking sound. Now, I know that some dragons have a sound weapon, when they yell, scream, whatever you want to call it, and that is powerful, but they're saying that this is an element, and thus somehow dragons have a vibration genetic thing to them, and that just doesn't make much sense to me. Next up, water, which we will accept that. Gravity. Now, gravity is a force, but they're saying it's an elemental, but I can halfway take this. This is supposed to be fantasy. And so we keep scrolling down. We got heat, no problem. Dark, no problem. Inertia. Inertia is another weird one. Inertia is the element of power and energy in the form of material in motion. Thus, an inertial elemental force is a region, area in which objects, materials are endued with momentum, inertia. Now, if it's all about movement, then shouldn't the dragons not be allowed to stop and sleep? And what do dragons know about doing? And that is sleeping. You never stir a dragon if you are smart. And so this just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Next up, we got Earth. We can understand that. Earth, dragons, and all that. That's your cave drakes and such. Oops. So then we go to compound. Electrical. Okay, fine. We can take electrical. Fire. We have heat, and now we got fire. They are separating the two. I just don't kind of like that at all. Next, you got ice. Okay, cold. Well, they're saying that ice is cold and water combined. No, I don't like that. Wind. Okay, wind, we would consider that to be air, but in this oddity, they're saying that it's air and inertia. Okay? So then we go to the super compound elements, plasma. Plasma, because of my love of science and math, I know that plasma is the fourth state of matter. Because you have an air form, liquid form, solid form, plasma form. Plasma is a state of material. It's not really an element, because all the elements that we know have a plasma state. Some are impossible to achieve and live, but that's just science right there. Then you got Vacid. The Vacid element is a compound composed of all 10 basic elements, with opposing elements being present in equal amounts. In opposing elemental forces are balanced. Air is balanced with gravity, cold balanced with heat, blah, 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 blah. For example, a Vacid element force could consist of 20% air, gravity, 10% cold, heat. It's all about equilibrium, and that's kind of... How do you have a dragon with that? It just doesn't make sense. And so I don't have a Vacid dragon. I don't have a plasma dragon, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. But it gets worse. Oh, yes. Complex elements. Let me screw up the page a little bit better for you. Aether. Aether element is the power energy of non-life. This is the power of the undead. There's no mass on the aether plane. Undead creatures draw their power from the aether. Thus, most have the ability to see aether creatures and forces. So we have the unlife here. And, that causes a lot of problems there. And I think that is going to screw up with game balance. Then they got chaos. Again, this is another thing that can't be an element here. The chaos element is the force of absorption and growth. The chaos element force absorbs and consumes all matter, elements, power, energy that it comes in contact with. Okay, so it's a void. Well, a void is not chaos. It just... Chaos, to me, is the power of change. And they're saying it's all-consuming. It just... Ugh. Next up is Nather. The Nather element is the mass of nothingness. It is the point in which the 10 basic element meet. And Nather element has a disruptive effect on all matter, so it's disruptive like chaos. And so, their concepts here are just terrible. The nexus element is the force of separation and barriers. It makes up the barriers that separate the elemental planes. The nexus element is the barrier that separates the elements. So if this is, separating, wouldn't this just be like everything's equaled out? Didn't we just have an element, supposed element, just like that? Then you got spirit. Well, if you got the undead, you got to have the life. So there's your spirit elemental. The spirit elemental is the power and energy of life. Thus, a spirit elemental force is a region of life force and change. Change? Well, isn't that chaos? Yeah. Then you got time. Okay. The time element is the power energy of time, duh. The time elemental force is a region area in which time can vary. It is the force that erodes all barriers, material, flesh, blah, blah. And so this is a very dangerous thing to have, because we're going to have time drakes and all that. And if something can slow down or speed up time, won't that just kind of really screw up the time barrier? What do they call it on Star Trek? Space-time continuum. You don't want anything that can go back in time and say, well, this now doesn't happen, so all this other stuff doesn't happen. And so this could really screw up a game. Professions. Oh gosh, yeah. So they got all the professions here have an elemental theme. An elemental channeler, who is basically like your cleric. Okay, no problem there. There we go. Elemental enchanter is a variant of the alchemist. An elemental enchanter is a pure elemental spell user that has the power to enchant and mold raw elemental force. The elemental enchanter receives a +30 to all manipulations of his primary elemental force. Which, here's another thing that I kind of don't like about this. With all these elements, you get to choose what your primary element is. So you can actually go, my primary element is time, and you mold time. How do you mold time? Okay, so that is really screwed up. You got your elemental summoner. A variant of the conjurer, the elemental summoner is a pure elemental spell user that specializes in summoning and mastering elemental beings and creatures. So this is somebody that would be able to summon like a fire servant or flying flyer riding beast. Okay, that's fine. But again, we're talking about the primary elemental force and time and chaos and all that other fun crap. Mystical Elementalist, a variant of the Rune Master. The Mystical Elementalist is a pure spell user that specializes in mastering elemental energy patterns and matrices. Okay. Again, we're talking that's got some nice powers to it. It can work. You just really got to be careful in how you apply it. It can destroy game balance pretty damn easily. I know that, unfortunately. Evil Elementalist. You know, this is a combination of an evil magician, the evil channeler, and an evil mentalist. The evil Elementalist is a hybrid elemental spell user that specializes in spells that will advance their power and social position. Their spells can cause misery for any that elect to stand in their way. They have elemental curses. We'll get to that. You got the Elemental Chanter. This is a variant of a Warlock. An Elemental Channeler is a hybrid elemental spell user that still has full access to some of the greater elemental spell lists. As an Elemental Channeler receives a plus 20. Yeah. And all the numbers that you're seeing, I better explain this. That is what their development costs are for the various skills that they will use as they adventure out. Certain skills cost more in certain areas depending on what the profession is. Elemental Physician. This is a variant of the Lay Healer. The Elemental Physician is a pure elemental spell user that specializes in healing elemental creatures. Okay. The Elemental Lay Healer, received. But this is strictly, he doesn't help on your elves, dwarves, and all that. He heals elemental and all that. So that is kind of, Okay, we have the Elemental Hunter. This is a variant of the Ranger. The Elemental Hunter is a semi-elemental spell user that is the bane of other elementalists and elemental creatures. This bounty hunter feels it is his duty to rid the world of the evil that elemental magic has caused. Now, in this particular book, they have some lore and there's some stories, and dragons are evil because they are just evil. And so all elementals in their eyes are evil. And so the elemental hunter goes out and kills elementals. You got the elemental warrior. This is a variant of the warrior mage. The elemental warrior is a semi-spell user that specializes in elemental combat and services. He is often a wanderer, so he usually will have a base form of elementals, and he is going to use that elemental energy and go after other elementals. So he can pick, let's say fire, and he can go out on a spree and try to kill all the cold dragons and all that. But he will also use his fire against any and all elementals. Next up, we got the Rogue Elementalist. This is a variant of a Beastmaster. The Rogue Elementalist is a semi-elemental spell user that attempts to use and control the elements without the benefit of proper schooling. This is what in witchcraft they would call this chaos magic, but it's not. Basically, you're starting from scratch, and he sees what works for him, and he develops his magical skills, and he does a little of this and a little of that. So he can use elemental attacks, gates. He knows a little bit of everything. When you see on these professions, they give the 6 base spell lists, that they can learn from. So on that part, it's good. And some of these spell lists are pretty nasty. Alright, now Rolemaster is a skill-based game. It gives numerical values for every skill, and you have to roll 2d10 or a d100 and look at a chart to see how well you did. So here are some of the base skills: banishments, elemental lore, elemental physics. That kind of is weird, elemental physics. I mean, it should be just physics. But then again, I graduated. Elemental base skill development point cost table. And so this also tells you what the costs are for these skills. So some of these professions, it's pretty cheap. It's a great way to develop another character. This is how they develop their PCs. You get so many development points, and then you get to spend them. A lot of this you're seeing fractions. The first skill is going to cost you like 1 or 2 development points. Then the second skill ranking is going to cost you the second number. Sometimes it's going to be a small number like a 3, or it can be as high as an 8. Okay? It gets worse. There we go. Elemental skills development chart. This is also more of the skill list here, that the more of the non-spell users are going to be on here. That's why for like the barbarian and elemental banishment, the very first thing you see, it's 25. A barbarian does not deal with elemental, so it's going to be very hard for him to do an elemental banishment, and thus it's 25 development points to get 1 skill rank. Alright, elemental spell list. Now this is one of the great things about Rolemaster, and that is there is a crap load of spells to use. You can see all the spell lists here. We're not going to go through them because that's going to take us several hours. Like I said, some are really good. Now, when they say an open spell list, that means anybody can learn it. Okay? It's open for any profession. If they want to try to learn these spells, these are the ones that they have access to. Closed spell lists, these are only for people that work with elemental energies. So any elementalist, semi or pure spell user can learn from these spells. Okay, and you can see there's quite a few spells to use. Base spell list. Depending on your profession, you will have 6 lists from all these that you can use. Okay. So we got like you can see it, elemental chants. That's like your incantations. You got glyphs, which are like runes that you can use. Elemental detection to help you find the darn things. There's elemental lore, elemental runes, elemental senses, wards, symbols. They divide the elements up into lesser, greater, and all of that. So, if you're doing like a cold, that's real basic as lesser. And then if you're doing time, that would be considered superior. This is their way to limit, so you don't have somebody that does not operate an elemental spell list to all of a sudden know how to do a time bolt. One of the few things that they do to create some form of balance. Elemental absorption, banishment, elemental attack enhancement. This one is very powerful because you can alter your elemental attacks. You can turn a regular bolt into a multi-bolt. You can enhance the attack level. You can do a lot with it. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'm still looking for it. There is one where, okay, well, it's multi-bolt. Allows the caster's next elemental bolt spell cast within 3 rounds to make 2 bolt attacks. And so the problem here is that, you know, you can go, they have this go higher and higher. And so like level 25, you know, as multi-bolts 2, except for 4 additional bolt attacks are allowed. So you can cast this level 25 spell and then cast cast a level 7 firebolt spell, and instead of 1 firebolt being shot out, you're shooting out 5 total. That's quite powerful, and that, I believe, is one of the reasons why they throw off game balance. You got your elemental healings, moldings, pooling. This is, of course, helps with the building of elementals. Spirit binding, again, you can. That's going to help with creating elementals. And here we got some more enhancement. You can increase the criticals. In Rolemaster, if you do a good job in your attack, you can get an A, B, C, D, or E critical. The higher the letter, the more powerful it is. And so you can, if you can enhance the critical, you can make like a B into a D. That's 2 levels higher. And then if you get a good roll, you can do an instant kill on your target. These really are great to have, and they're closed, but there's still something that can really throw off your game balance, can make the elementalists very powerful. You can do duration, and so you can make spells last longer. And elemental radius, so you know, if you're doing a ball attack, you can make it handle a larger area. Elemental ranging, obviously you get to increase your range. Now, depending on spell, like Firebolt, if I remember right, has 100-foot range. Well, with this, you can add an additional 1,000 feet per level. And so somebody could be miles away and you can cast a firebolt at them. That just seems a little, yeah. Then we need to get a little faster. Enhanced proto-elemental poison. We're going to talk about that later, but this is something that I could not put in my games, is the proto-elemental poisoning. And so you can see we're doing some of the same lists, but with greater elemental powers. A lot of nice spell lists to choose from. Okay, this is one of the base elemental spell lists. You got area elemental curses. And you could take away their shadow. You can, like, level 3 on them. Demonic shadows. That just really can have some weird effects. I forgot, like greater elemental summoning. You can do some very powerful elementals pretty darn easily. They have personal curses. Magnetize, number 7. Target's body acts like a magnet to iron. Iron, dust, and small particles cling to the target's body, getting the target a dull, dirty grayish appearance when dry, and a reddish-brown appearance when wet. Target's body weight will increase by 5%, and he has a swimming penalty of a -10. And his quickness bonus is modified by -5, and and if he has no armor, it's now armor type 3, which, yeah. Elemental fires is about doing a hotter fire to process elements. We'll get into that one later. There's just a lot of interesting elemental laws that will make an alchemist jealous. And now we're getting to another bad area. Elemental races. They give the stats for you to combine a regular fantasy race with an elemental race. In D&D, they have tieflings. Well, you can have something far better than a tiefling now. Okay, so this one is if you have a half elf, half elemental crossbreed. And so you can see right there, you could have an elf vibrational entity character. And so that could be interesting, but the dangerous part, again, we're talking about there's time, and that is just so darn dangerous. And I'll show you why. Then you can have a human crossbreed elemental race. So again, just like your tieflings, you can pick the element, or they actually have a chart in here where you can roll what element you get. And so you could have a human chaos elemental crossbreed, and you can. There's all your stats for your resistance rolls and all that. It's got some good detail. And then, if you wanted a life form, you say you were into the vibrational plane, you could have a vibrational entity, creature, whatever you want to call it, life form, become a PC, and you could have all the stats for it. This one, all these I think are a little bit hard to do, but I don't think it's impossible. Come on. Then again, now, Rolemaster on this idea, they have what they call opposites. You have an opposing force. So if you are a dark, your opposition is light. If you're fire, your opposition's water and all that. So this chart right here is if you are in your element. So if you're in thunderstorms and you're in electrical, there's your stat bonuses for all that fun stuff. Okay? But what happens if you go into an opposing plane? Your stats bonuses change. And I'm not too overly thrilled about all that, but that's the way it is. Some of these don't make sense. It's just weird. Now they're getting into the creatures. Now, I love dragons. I collect dragons. I love them, and I love the artwork. The Rolemaster has some of the best artwork in its books. There's some doozies out there, but this one is going to be one of my all-time favorites because it just shows the power of a dragon. And they talk about all the abilities and that of dragons, and so it's got some decent background information. But then we get into the different types of drakes. And, we got the air drakes, cold drakes, and all that, and that's fine. We even have a gas drake. Fine. Yeah, it's what they're saying in here is it's found in swamps. But there we go. The inertia drake, who should be always moving. Inertia drakes are formidable opponents that prefer spearing their prey with their large horns. At times, inertia drakes use their control over the inertia element force to have their prey tossed into the air. The more their prey screams and carries on, the more they enjoy it. Inertia drakes' normal coloration is gray, but gray-brown, orange-browns, red-browns, red-black, blah, 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 ground variants have been spotted. That's one thing I hate about their descriptions and all their dragons and all that is they say that, hey, these are the, what the scales look like, and too many variants. It's kind of like a waste of space. And then they talk about some of the laws, spell lists that they get. Inertia drakes have mastery of Doom's Law and Arm's Way spell list, which is a warlock and a paladin base list. It's kind of interesting. And so that part, sometimes these spells are kind of gives them too much power. This right here is their stat blocks, all the information you needed so you can just look here and what level, their movement, their speed, size, hits, armor type, what their various attacks are. And, since dragons always have treasure, they have a treasure chart. And their outlook, most of these are various, which means some can be mean, some can be nice. It's a good way to quickly look up dragons if you're playing the Rolemaster system. Here's a little bit more detailed on the base movement chart. And again, we're getting into some of the weird dragons, and this really throws off the balance. A vibration drake. I hate this one. That's the reason why I keep bringing it up. Vibration drakes are the only greater drakes that do not live in lairs. Their nature and their breath weapon is not suited to underground or under roof living. Collapsing stone has killed many a vibration drakes. It is difficult to sneak up on a vibration drake due to their enhanced senses. Okay, the best senses of all drakes. They are always enchanted and entertained by powerful and beautiful songs, music. While the vibration drake's coloration is normally silver or gray, they may be traces of red, gold, blues, blacks, browns found in the silver and gray plates. Vibration drakes are mastery of sound waves, essence hands, sound molding, true sight, true perception, sound control, and sound projection spell lists. That's a lot of spell lists to give a creature. And so if you get a high level one, that makes it very, very powerful. And let me scroll up a little bit. Time drakes. Again, we have something that can control time. Just not a great thing. Luster drakes. Now these are like your wyverns and all that. They don't have wyvern elementals here. But they don't have any breath weapons, but they have spells that they could use. And so these can be very, powerful still. You can see that they got some pretty high levels up here, because if you look at, trying to remember which one it is, well, Time Drake, okay, and the Spirit Drake. For an old timer Spirit Drake, they're 40 level. Now, that I know for those of you that do the Dungeons, Dragons, and all the clones, 40 is an impossibility because your limit is 20th level. Take whatever level you see on the chart and divide it by 5. And that's what it'd roughly be in the D&D and all the clones. So 40 divided by 5 is a level 8 dragon. Okay. They have the elemental giants. You know, fine, but again, you know, I really wouldn't want some of these giants with some of these elemental abilities. You got the elemental serpents, elemental guardians. You have intelligent elementals, and so that's all you need is for like the vibration. You know how much I love that one. A level 25 intelligent elemental. Now, generally speaking, that means that they have some magic skills. Okay, so Time Intelligent Elemental is intelligent, flies, a swirling contradiction of energy mass, and surrounded by a shroud of ageless energy particles. And yeah, so that, how do you incorporate something like that into the game? And so then of course you have to have your non-intelligent. There are elementals that are just the right size for you to ride. And again, would you want to be riding a time riding elemental? A vibration riding elemental, I think, would be a horrible drive. I mean, you're always shaking. How can you stay on it? You'd have to have a lot of belt straps and all that crap. Elemental service, now, yeah, servant, sorry. That I could say, you know, this would be your standard elemental, and like the picture shows, you know, you can have it reach out of the earth and do something. So that I could see, okay, but again, we're talking, you gotta be careful of which ones you use. Then you got these whispering elementals, which are small. They are they're the weakest of all elementals. They are usually found causing trouble and annoying people. When controlled or mastered, they can be used to entertain children and guests. Whisperings cannot speak and must be controlled to do even the most simple tasks. Lighting candles, closing doors. They cannot manipulate, lift, or carry anything that requires more than half a pound of force. Unless controlled, whisperings do not fight unless cornered. So these are a waste of time, in my opinion. They have the Zephyr Hounds, and we all know what a Zephyr Hound is. Most people would say that, you know, this is like a fire Zephyr Hound, which they have, which is cool. But some of these other elementals just, I don't think, make it sense. A Night Hound would be cool. It would fit in with what Zephyr Hounds are usually portrayed as. But not all of them. I don't think I would want a Gravity Zephyr Hound. The Gravity Hound is brown with glowing golden eyes. As a pack of Gravity Hounds runs through the from place to place, the trail of destruction is left. One can spot them by the sound of objects being crushed and broken, and by the sight of objects leaping into the air. So they can remove gravity and intensify gravity, and that, while cool, can be very, I think, disruptive. This is their elemental modifications, how they interact with each other. It's interesting. The elemental force attack tables. Now this is getting good. You can tell by they got the critical chart. They go up to J, in which they show you that if you deliver a J critical, which is massive, it consists of an E, D, and a C. So you can come up with some really nasty damage, and we'll get into that. So this is their attack table. I'll try to link. There we go. So, you roll your dice and you add it to what your offensive bonus, and that's what the very first chart is. The higher the number, the better. Then you see the columns 1 through 20. Each one of those columns represents a level of armor. Level 1 is no armor. It's just your regular, like street clothes, that's it. Level 20 is full plate armor. They go in groupings of 4. So 1 through 4 is no armor. 5 through 8 is soft leather. 9 through 12 is rigid leather. 13 through 16 is your chainmail or scale armor. And 17 through 20 is plate. So, there's a lot of details to this. And I like this version of combat because there can be a little bit more consistent than D&D and the clones, and you can really deliver some damage. If you look at this one, this is for the superior. They did this in alphabetical order, not in level of intensity. But anyway, if you have a superior elemental force and you attack somebody that has 0 armor, level 1, armor type 1, and you get that beautiful G100, you did 112 points of damage. 112. A lot of creatures in Rolemaster system, they max out below that. So, that's almost like a guaranteed kill if you hit a hobbit, a dwarf, and all that, because they don't have that many hits. And here are the critical tables. So this is why I say this game is so awesome, because it's the tables that make everything so darn awesome. Because some of these tables are quite powerful. Now, like I said, there's your critical. So then, when you do your battle, you hit the first chart, and it's going to tell you like you did a 25D. Then you'll roll your dice again, and you will see what your number is here in this column. Then cross-reference it with whatever type of critical that you had. And so, Aether Nexus is boring. I don't use that one. Mental. Gosh, this one I hate. This is, again, one of the major unbalancing aspects of the book is the mental. Because if you were to go and look at this, it is telling you that you are losing stats. Like there's one for the 67 through 70, a critical. Medium orientation, lose 7 development points reduce one mental stat by 3. Some of these, you don't want to lose your mental stats, because then you lose development points, and it basically is turning your PC into, and sorry for the bad term, a retard. You're dumbing your character down. Time. Now, remember I was telling you how bad that is? Well, here's why. If the maximum one you can do is an E100, which is this one right here. Your body crumbles to dust so quickly that there is nothing you can do. Holy crap. In Rolemaster, on these, if you roll 100, awesome. Excuse me. But rolling a 66 could be awesome too. Because they view that as a bad number. Alright, sorry. For the A66, which is this one right here, death script was frightening. -10 from all the stats. Great. And then you go to the the 66 E critical. You are not growing old gracefully. Rapidly aging kills you in 3 rounds. Instant kills are cool and all that, but man, they suck when they happen to you. Next one is the vibration critical. And I love the vibration critical, yes, but I better get something to drink real quickly. And the E100 plus 60 hits. Major body strike. Body is literally ripped into thousands of parts. Foe is made into a pool of bloody jelly. Very dead. Instant kill. I don't know why they put in their plus 60 hits. Maybe just for shits and giggles. But then like the D100 plus 50 hits. Major head strike. Brain oozes out of facial openings. Body takes 2 involuntary steps backwards and then drops very dead. These are very powerful critical charts. And now they're talking a little bit more about the interactions and between elementals, and that's interesting. They are talking about how some forces can work together, some are opposing. And so if you're going to use the elemental planes and all that, this is kind of fun to use, but it is tedious as hell, because you are having to always constantly keep track of what PCs or what elements and where they're at. Are they in opposition or are they not? And it just... This is also then one of the rare times where Rolemaster did it right. Cone attacks. They have a wonderful chart here on how you can build your cone and how you should figure out damages and all that. This is the highlight of the whole frickin' book as far as I'm concerned. They don't have this chart in the other books. Oops. And right here they're talking about ranges and all that of various cones, what the radius is, so it's quite... I love it. Okay, then they got these elemental theories. Now this is all lore. They're talking, and this is a fictional story of how the early scientists discovered, identified, and organized the elements. Some were saying that these were opposites, like fire and water and all that. But they're also trying to group. There's one group that tried to put them in sets of 3. It was interesting. It adds to the story and all that, because then you can have different groups fighting each other because no, it's this way, not that way. It talks about some of the different elemental planes, like the plane of time, which would be a hellscape, because there's no linear time passage here. So you can go from aging quickly to getting younger. You might all of a sudden become a baby. I just don't like that. And here's the Rolemaster's version of the universe and all the planes. I know that D&D at one time had the Astral Sea. Maybe this, you could say it's close to the Astral Sea concept. It's just kind of weird. Now comes the part I absolutely hate a lot too. PEM, or Proto-Elemental Material. Now, I hate this part because of the concept that it has. Because it is saying that there's kind of like radiation to every damn elemental. So you could have been attacked, let's say by an Agstric. They have an example of that. Well, within the ice breath weapon of this, there are these PEM particles, particle elemental, yeah. And so if these build up, you can be poisoned. And so this is one way where they're trying to make it more difficult for, I would say this is what they're trying to do to limit people that are elementalists into, overwhelming an area, because you got to worry about PEM poisoning. Because, oh no, too many elementals of this type are in this one area, and so this area can be contaminated by ice energy. Yay. And then they talk about antidotes, which is basically, if you got too much ice PEMs in you, you better get around some fire elementals, because then the fire PEMs will neutralize the cold PEMs. And that is so fucking stupid. And now they're talking about some of the manipulations. That's pretty good. They're talking about forging elemental material. Now this also has some very bad unbalancing to it, because they, as you can see up here, elemental metals. They're saying that certain elemental metals, or elements that are metallic, have, when processed right, can be imbued with abilities. Yeah, and there's your chart of it. So, when we look at it, they have bronze and all that, where if you put it in one of the major forges, or, because you got your elemental furnace, lesser elemental forge, greater elemental forge, deep elemental forge, and elemental forge. Remember, there was that spell list earlier in the video, elemental fire. So, well, that's what this is all about. So you can actually create certain things, and they would have bonuses and additional powers to it. In it, they have Mithril from Middle Earth, Tolkien's world. And so if you go and you do Mithril on an elemental forge, it's plus 30. But if you only have a lesser elemental forge, it's only a plus 15. Certain metals have certain attributes, and it's just... But this is not all, because they give some of these metals some very, very unbalancing abilities. Right here, hopefully you can see the cursor. Paratoid, which is an air-earth elemental metal. Dancing weapons. Such a weapon can leave the wielder's hand and fight on its own with an offensive bonus equal to 3 times its normal offensive bonus. Such a weapon will automatically begin to fight if its wielder is dropped or killed. And then they tell you how long it lasts. So that can be, it has its advantages, yes, but I think that unbalances the game. They got EOG, again, this is Rolemaster, but it's made by Iron Crown Enterprises. Iron Crown Enterprises was the first company that started to do Middle-earth role-playing, MERP. And so they do have some references to various things from Rolemaster, because at this time when these were being made, they had a license to make it, and so that they could use it. Trying to find, there was another one that had some weird abilities to it. But well, okay, we have one that you can have invisible weapons, chaos weapons. That one I don't like either, because for my game you have to develop each weapon skill separately, and chaos earth elemental weapons constantly change shape and sizes, and it's always a weapon of one general type. So if you have an edged, if you have basically a broadsword, it can become a broadsword, a rapier, foil, bastard sword. It can do all those, but in some rules you have to learn each one separately, and so this is horrible for the PC. Lane, which we also know as Tolkien. Weapons of reflection. These weapons have a percentage chance of reflecting spells back at the caster. If the GM wishes, such weapons can have an area of effect equal to 5 feet. And so that, I think, is, I'm trying to figure out how that is related to cold earth. I myself would say if I have a lane sword and it's cold earth, it could do an additional impact critical and an additional cold critical. But some of this is just, I think it's unbalanced and ruins it in the game. And this right here is just for using it in Shadow World. This is the adventuring world that Iron Crown had made. And there's your encounter chart so that you can roll to find out what type of unbalanced powerful creature you have to fight. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's the end of that. And there we go. And so from my rant, you can tell this is a terrible book. It has great ideas that you can use, but I think as a GM, you're going to have to do a lot of altering of it so that it does not destroy your game dynamics. You can get this is all the Rolemaster books are out of print. You can get the PDFs for them so that you can play them on your computers and all that. I'm a pen and paper person myself, and there's a lot of pen and paper people out there. You can still get this on eBay. Amazon has it, and they can get pretty expensive. If you are wanting to do pen and paper Rolemaster and you haven't started it but are interested, I want to warn you that some of these books can cost up to $200 each. There is Rolemaster Companion number 6. I will not buy it because the cheapest I've seen it is $150. And I am not spending that much money on one book. So stay away from this book unless you are ready for a lot of work in refining what they've got written down here. So everybody, please put your comments down below. If you have this book and thought it was a great book, please tell me what you liked about it. Everybody, please take care. Be at peace.